chapter 7 and 8. And by the way, just in case we don't get there tonight, that looks like the Maccabean army. The saints of the Most High God, I know, it's kind of come down for some. The saints of the Most High God looks like the Maccabean army, primarily Judas Maccabee. You say, how do you know that? Well, we'll show you as we go through Daniel why scholars, not just me, think that that's true. In fact, my introduction here says that Daniel was written around 170 BC. The final form of Daniel may be written in the middle of the Maccabean War against the Seleucids. I will have to tell you who the Seleucids are before we can even do that. I'll do that next time. But let's do what we can here before we get to the Maccabean type version. So what am I saying? This is a composite book. Some stories may be early, some stories may be late. But like all composites, even counterfeit coins, you have to date them by the last story and not the first. Because it's the last story that the final composite is made. It's in the time of the last story that and thereafter. Coin, for instance, is not dropped as in the Dead Sea Scrolls arguments by a passerby in the, for instance, Qumran before the date on the coin. It has to be dropped after the date on the coin. The coin can't be minted before its own date. It can be influenced by previous coins. It can incorporate motifs from previous coins. But the minting, that doesn't mean it was minted, that doesn't mean it was dropped on the day it was minted. It can be dropped any time thereafter to the next 50, 100 years, depending on how long that coin was in use. Probably couldn't have been dropped by a modern forger who threw it down there to confuse scholars, but that could also happen too. In any case, let's look at this. We don't know when these stories were written. Some of them are early, some late. They're finally put together at a later period, the period of the last story in here, whatever that is. And I think you'll see it's in the Maccabean period. So therefore you have to say Daniel is a product of the Maccabean period. Now we don't even know when the Maccabean period is. We haven't discussed it yet. We'll discuss that next time. But, for your purposes, 2nd century BC. Jewish Hanukkah festivities. We'll consolidate the Maccabean period. Again, big problem. Maccabean books, not in the Jewish Bible. You want to read the Maccabean books? Where do you have to go? Catholic Bible, not even in the Protestant Bible, or what you call Apocrypha. But the Apocrypha theoretically is not in the Protestant Bible. It was added so that people could have the benefit of some of the extra stories in the Apocrypha. But the Maccabean books in the Catholic Bible. The Maccabean books tell you what Hanukkah is. How can you have the books telling you what Hanukkah is in the Catholic Bible when it's supposed to be one of the primary festivals of the Jews? I don't know. I can tell you later why I think that happened. But I don't know, because the Catholics don't celebrate Hanukkah as far as I'm aware. Maybe they should. It's in their Bible. They should maybe celebrate Hanukkah, but it's not to my knowledge that they do. And the Jews who celebrate Hanukkah more recently than maybe pretty earlier, I don't think Hanukkah was very popular in the Talmudic literature, frankly, because it's a spirit somewhat alien to the Talmudic literature, except for a few rabbis who were pretty zealous, like Akiba or Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, who are pretty resistance-minded, and a famous rabbi who lived in a cave and to whom Zohar material is attributed. Simeon, what's his Bar Yohan. These rabbis are resistance-minded people, but most of the rabbis are not. And, so Hanukkah is not a very popular festival in the Talmudic material because Hanukkah is a resistance festival. It's a resistance to foreign rule. It's a resistance to desecration of the temple. It's a resistance to Hellenization of the temple. So we will get that in a moment, but let's look here at that. So power, strength, glory, that's how I got on that, because that will be the sons of the Most High God later on in chapter 7 and 8. But look here, this is a King of Kings. The God is not just called the God, he's called the God of heaven, which is a new idea. In any case, after you another kingdom will rise, not so great as you, and then a third of bronze to rule the whole world, and a fourth hard as iron, iron that shatters and crushes all. Now because this is written in a kind of code, people like to apply it to their own time because they like to feel they live in important times. So you can apply it to any time, but as it will turn out, it probably doesn't apply to any time. Babylonian kingdom is usually the first, the Medes and the Persians are usually the second and the third, and the fourth is almost always the kingdom of Alexander the Great. The kingdom of iron and the he-goat that comes from the west in chapter 7 and 8 is almost always Alexander the Great. We'll be able to prove that to you by chapter 8, because in chapter 8, Gabriel is going to tell us it's the Greeks, that the fourth kingdom is the Greeks. Gabriel will tell us that. And that is the interpretation of the visions. But people who like to just throw this around, apply it to any time, haven't read Daniel closely. It doesn't just apply to any time. You can make it apply to any time, should you want to, but it doesn't in its original presentation. Again, literature is open to interpretation. You can reapply it as you like, esoterically or allegorically. Let's see this. So, there's a fourth kingdom that will break everything to pieces, crush and break all the earlier kingdoms. The feet you saw, part earthenware, part iron, are a kingdom which will be split in two, which retains something of its strength. The feet were part iron, part earthenware. The kingdom will be partly strong, partly weak, etc., 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 etc. Anyway, in the time of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And this kingdom will not pass into the hands of another race. Notice that, by the way. It will shatter and absorb all the previous kingdoms and last forever. That is the first announcement of what the Christians are going to call the kingdom of heaven, or the kingdom of God, or the eternal kingdom. That's not in any previous book. When I was young, someone gave me the book of Daniel and said, here, it's all in Daniel. You read Daniel and you'll understand. Of course, he had the Christian interpretation of Daniel. He thought that I would understand that that was the case. Well, at that point, I didn't know much, and I deferred to this person who gave it to me. He was a painter in Paris. He painted apocalyptic things, and he was really, a Viennese painter who was kind of out of his mind. But